I'm Josh Miller. I'm a Drupal Commerce Communicator, that's a mouthful, at Commerce Guys, and my job is to interact with the community, mostly online, because you don't all live in Greenville, South Carolina. But I spend my days basically deleting spam from DrupalCommerce.org and answering questions when I have enough time to do so. We have a forum on there as well as a Q&A, and it's a good place, and I really do mean this honestly, I always say this whenever I'm at a camp. If you want to learn how to do Drupal commerce, if you want to be an expert at it, go and answer people's questions. I came into this job 3 years ago because I knew Drupal. I didn't know anything about commerce. And now I have quite a knowledge base just based on like, okay, well, I don't know how you do that. And I'm going to go try to do this. And it takes me 10 minutes. And then it takes me like 2 hours to tell you how to do it. And hopefully there's a lot of really great resources out there that we've cultivated over the years. There's great videos, a lot of Q&A, a lot of forums. So that's what I do. You can find me on Twitter. Though I don't always answer to Twitter, because I don't, if I have it on during the day, I won't get anything else done. So today we're going to look at a client who's panicked. He's really panicked. He really wants lots of stuff and he has no time, no budget. And it kind of looks like that. It's this big collection of weird things. And he's asked the Drupal Hero to come in and save the day. We're going to be talking about the digital e-commerce ecosystem. And that's different than traditional e-commerce. Traditional e-commerce has you selling a t-shirt of different sizes and different colors and shipping it to your client. And that's great. That's what a lot of e-commerce software was built on originally. UberCart was built around that. A lot of the e-commerce services that are out there are designed around physical shipping products because that's what we think of as when we think of a store. Recently, probably in the last 6 or 7 years, we've seen an emergence of digital services that get charged on a recurring basis. A great example of that, and I think almost every one of you has one of these, is a cell phone. You have a cell phone and you pay a monthly rate, and if you were to cancel it in the middle of the month, they would only charge you for the maybe 10 days that you used it this month, and you wouldn't get charged for the full month, or maybe if they're really terrible, they charge you for the full month even though you didn't use it. That's called prorating. If you have a cable service, you pay a bill just like this. If you use Netflix or you pay for Hulu Plus, you're using some sort of billing system that's giving you access to something on a site, that's giving you access to a service that has nothing to do with the internet, maybe a little bit to do with the internet, like cell phones. And there's little things that are going to change the price of what you're going to charge. So when we went to the drawing boards a couple years ago looking at building a hosting solution that would solve a lot of problems, we came up with this idea that I just learned today. It's called continuous integration. It existed. We built something called Platform, which is out there right now. You can go to platform.sh and you can learn all about it. And it does all kinds of really cool developer-y things, but we wanted to charge based on how big your platform was, not how much traffic you're using, how many people are accessing it, because that's really helpful when you have more people on the team, more resources get used. So we needed to be able to tell commerce, well, how do you charge for something that has a weird set of variables that has nothing to do with a website? Because our Drupal instance that's using Platform isn't actually running Platform. Platform's different. It's running on a whole server-based technology, and it keeps track of users. So we built this thing called Commerce License. And Commerce License does some really great things. We built it from the ground up about 2 years ago. Bojan Zivanovic, the new co-maintainer of Drupal Commerce, built this. This was on his free time. And first thing it can do really easily is it lets you download downloadables. And that's what most of us think of as digital commerce. Most of us think, okay, I'm going to sell PDFs. I'm going to write white papers and people are going to pay me for these white papers. Maybe you're selling MP3s, maybe you're selling access to video tutorials. That's a great way to make a little bit of side money on teaching people how to use Drupal. However you want to do it, Commerce License is the underlying groundwork that makes this happen. Premium content, if your client comes to you and wants to sell access to a certain portion of the site, anything that you're selling access to, Commerce License is going to be a very helpful situation, particularly since content access is usually time-based. And time-based access is really hard to get right. It's really hard to take away access to content once you've given it on a timely manner in a fair way. Support, we used Commerce License to sell tickets. You could actually sell the ability to create content. Think of it like a newspaper who's selling classified ads. They literally sell the ability for you to publish something on their medium. So you could actually build a classified ads website using Commerce License, and each person that pays $10 gets to create one node of a certain length.
Josh, give me an example of why is it hard to take away someone's access to premium content?
Okay, so the example is if you don't have Commerce License, there's no quantifiable way to necessarily remove a role, for example, that's been checked. So you could create rules that would do this, that would act on cron functions that you've run. You could build this bespoke. What we've built is an ecosystem, an API, if you will, that works very well, doesn't even really use cron unless it has to fairly and accurately always give or take away access when necessary. Does that answer your question? Yes and no? Ours is a fancier solution. In the past, and we wrote this in response to something we heard, partially in response to something we heard a lot last year, which is how do you literally sell access? How do you use commerce to sell access to a certain blog post or to a certain section of your website? This is a hard problem to solve. A lot of people have tried and failed. And the reason it's hard to solve is because it's hard to track. It's hard to know exactly who has access, how much access they have, and whether or not they've paid to have that recently. So Commerce License does that. Subscriptions is the big hot item. In DrupalCon Austin, there was a session telling you how to build a huge business, a really hot business on software as a service that Robert Douglas gave. And it was really interesting because he posited, I don't know if it's true, but he said basically software as a service is where all the money is in today's e-commerce world. If you look at all the big players that are making tons and tons of money, it's recurring revenue and it's something they control. Not because you guys don't want control, maybe because that, but mostly because they then control lots of things. And one of they can control exactly when the updates get put out there. They can control when bug fixes get released. The old model that Microsoft made very popular, where they sell you a full copy that works no matter how long you own it, is basically dead. Software doesn't really get sold like that anymore. It gets sold on a subscription. That's one way you can actually make money on Drupal really easily, is you can sell subscriptions to maybe perhaps hosting environments that launches a particular thing. Something I've thought of recently is maybe instead of just talking about COD, which is the presentation distribution of Drupal, or the conference distribution of Drupal, we actually build a SaaS product that lets you run up a conference website with one click. Why not? I mean, you've got the tools here to sell it. You've got the capability in your head to build it. It's just somebody needs to go out there and build it. Okay, so the crazy client, wants all of this, and he wants it either one-time or recurring. So he's kind of freaking out. And I think he's kind of freaking out the Drupal Hero as well, because it's like, client comes to you with this kind of thing, they're not really sure what they're doing, because they're asking for too much. But one thing's for sure, Drupal Commerce for a long time has been able to sell downloadables. That's The Doors selling one of their music pieces. Recently, plainstv.com went from UberCart to Drupal Commerce, and it's now selling subscription video. And Commerce Platform's a great example, platform.sh. Actually, I think the design has been updated a little bit, but it handles renewable subscriptions based on things that aren't necessarily Drupal based on the size of your platform, that kind of thing. So when you sell digital, you need a lot of things. You need to be able to track the usage in some fashion. You need to be able to give and revoke access. This is the kind of stuff we've been talking about. In some cases, if you want recurring, you need to have billing cycles, and then you need to be prepared to deal with people that have credit cards that expire. All of our credit cards expire because they have an expiration date. You also need to be able to handle if somebody cancels their subscription halfway through. What are you going to do with that? Are you just going to charge them the full amount? You're going to charge them nothing for that month? You need a module that can really help you with this. You can either prepay or post-pay. So with cell phones, for example, if you prepay, you're paying for the upcoming month. If you post-pay, you're paying for last month. And different companies do this differently. Post-pay is the opposite of that. And then you can do the prorating. The prorating is either you start in the middle of the month and we'll charge you part of this month, and then we'll charge you the full amount the next month. So if you were to sign up for Netflix halfway through a billing cycle, maybe they only charge you $3 at the beginning. So that's what this weird collection of things is over here. That's what the client's asking for, all of these things. How do you get this to work? So the Drupal Hero comes out. I just love Legos. I don't know why. I really do. It's probably because I was a kid and remain so. He's coming to the rescue. He's using my other favorite tool, Commerce License, which is represented here by a classic Game Boy playing Tetris, the most classic Game Boy game you can think of. And we have a particular page flow here that Commerce License is going to do, a workflow, if you will. When you add a product to your website using Drupal Commerce, products and pages are completely different. And it's that architecture that makes it extremely powerful, but also extremely difficult to understand. Because most people think when I put a product on my website, you should be able to see it. Well, in Drupal Commerce, kind of. You need to create a product, and then you need to reference that product on some sort of displayable content, usually a node. Once somebody sees that page, they're going to click Add to Cart, and when you the first time you click Add to Cart, it's going to create a line item. Most people think of that as a cart, and then when you check out, they think of it as an order. It's the same thing in Drupal Commerce. Carts and orders are just orders with a different status, and they have all these line items. And if you think about it, these are the things I learned when I started at Commerce Guys. The only thing that e-commerce software does, is it allows you to create an order, tracks everything that's in that order, and then it charges you for that order. So if you want to think about how e-commerce is working, at least in Drupal Commerce, we're dealing with a product, we're dealing with you being able to see a product and then adding it to an order. So when you have a line item, that's great and all if you're shipping something, because all that does is send somebody an email to actually ship it. But when we're talking about digital access, we're talking about something completely different. When somebody buys access to your service, to your premium content area, to a particular video, this is where Commerce License comes in. And Commerce License is a field that you add to your products, and it lets you give access to the user, which then gives you access to the actual product. Maybe it's the same thing, maybe that's a file that's connected to your product. Maybe if you're selling PDFs, you add the PDF to your product, and Commerce License grants access to that PDF when the user checks out. Or perhaps your product is you're selling the ability to create content. You're selling, what did we call them for newspapers? You're selling classifieds. Like you're selling the ability to create content on a website because there's great content on your website. You get a lot of traffic. Maybe you charge a guest blogger $100 to actually post something on your site. That's what you're selling. Commerce License handles that. So Commerce License provides a framework for selling access to local or remote resources. And that's straight out of the module page that's on the website there. And it has a bunch of pieces to it, and that's where our final image comes together. We have something called billing cycles, commerce file, commerce license node, license rule, and license billing. And we're going to go over this really quick. To do downloadables, you're going to use something very aptly named called commerce file. And you really, really hope, if you've started this anytime in the last year, that you use the 2x version instead of the 1x version. Otherwise, you get to redo it. Because 1x didn't know anything about commerce license and had lots and lots of problems dealing with access issues and that kind of thing. So 2x is built onto commerce license, and what it does is it just allows you to attach files, images. You could create the kind of website that just totally disintermediated the stock industry, stock image industry, like iStock photo, when you could buy a stock image for $1. What's this? I mean, if you ever bought stock photos prior to iStock coming out, they were hundreds of dollars for one. And iStock came around and said, well, you could download one for $1. That's fine with me. And then now, of course, they've been purchased and you're back to paying like $100 again for it. It will happen again. Someone will disintermediate it again. And it could be you. You could be building the next iStock. Why not? Tracks and revokes based on number of downloads and duration of availability, and it provides an API for you to create your own kinds of metrics that you want to do. Maybe it's so many views of a video, that kind of thing. Commerce License Node, again, builds on top of Commerce License, and it allows you to sell node creation, this thing I've been talking about, classified ads. It gives you a metered billing that allows you to sell the ability to create so many nodes. I don't recommend it, nor does the module page, the person who wrote it, David Kitchen, recommend it for selling single node access. And on the module page, there's a link to show you how to do that without this set of modules. But think classified ads or something like that. License billing.
What was that again? You don't recommend?
For single node access. So what this is doing is selling you the ability to create nodes, the ability to create content, as opposed to the ability to see one node. That's a completely different set of issues. Usually the single node access has something to do with being able to grant one user access rights to one piece of content. And that can be a little tricky. I would love to see a module out there that does this easily. You can build rules, you can use access, I think it's ACL, something like that. Content access, something like that. There's lots and lots and lots of access modules that are on Drupal.org that let you set up roles that have the ability to see specific nodes, that kind of thing. Then you would use rules to assign that person to that node, and they now have access to it. License billing. License billing supports all kinds of things. You can read them right there. Basically anything that you could do with this really, really popular service called Recurly. Anybody ever heard of Recurly? Anybody? Couple nodded heads. They're really big right now. They're selling the ability. You can put it on your website, kind of like PayPal used to do, still does. You can put a button on your website, pay me $10 a month, and then you go into Recurly. They keep all of your information, and they handle all of the credit card transactions. If the credit card gets denied, what happens, all of that. And they do this all for you for 30% of whatever you're charging. That's pretty steep. You can do more than what Recurly is doing in the interface of Commerce License Billing for free because it's open source. So license billing gives you lots and lots and lots of really cool tools, that the ability to build cool tools. It doesn't really come out of the box with much. Any license type can be used for recurring billing, and a license is considered billable if its product has a billing cycle type selected. So this is what we use to sell platform. This is, we created Commerce License and License Billing to handle what we hope will be tens of thousands of users getting charged on a monthly basis for something that they really want and need. But this could be any service that your clients want to do or that you want to build too. Finally, we have something called billing cycles. And how do you handle billing cycles? That's the big question, because we're not just talking about something that happens on your website on a scheduled basis and then charging a card. We're also talking about how do you store credit cards on your website safely. You do this with a token. And we've done this for a long time. It's called Commerce Card on File. Don't use the 1x version. Use the 2x version. The 1x version had a famous cool bug. You could check out anonymously, and if anybody else had saved a card anonymously, you could use their card. That's a cool bug. I don't think anybody actually used it, though, because we found it before there were any downloads. But payment denied. Okay, so what happens when somebody has a card on file? They're using your awesome service where they can call you day or night with all of their troubling needs. And you get a phone call from somebody, and you look up their account before you take the call, and you realize that they have a payment denied. Commerce Dunning is designed to create kind of this pseudo schedule, and there's lots of videos out here to show you how to use this, but it lets you create a scenario basically where it says if a card is about to be charged, check to see if it's available, and then it'll send an email if it's not, if it's been expired, that kind of thing, preemptively. But it can also set up what happens to an order if it does get denied, and that's when you start sending emails. However you want to do it, you can configure it in rules, or you can use what it comes with by default, and it will continue to try to contact your users. You could set it up with the message module to actually send a text message to your users if it's a critical service that they pay for. There's all kinds of things you can do with Dunning, but basically the idea is they're going to get denied access until their payment becomes available. And the biggest thing, and this is very important that you realize, cron just doesn't do it. Cron can fail, and it just fails. Cron is, if you're unaware, cron is what allows Drupal to do certain things on a timely basis, but not necessarily because there's traffic hitting the website. That's useful, and lots of Drupal sites use it all the time to deal with caches and to deal with simple tasks. But if your business depends on something happening at a certain time and emails getting sent out, you don't really want to depend on cron to do it. We're using a module called Advanced Queue, and you can read about it on Drupal.org. There's a lot more information about how it gets set up, different APIs that let you handle it off-site on a different server, however you want to handle it. Or, if you just have it installed, it's just going to work, which is really nice. Sell content and site access. So there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it is built on top of license billing, which is just a simple way to sell content access. And all it does is you can attach a role to a product, and someone buys that product, they now have that role. And if it's using license billing, if their card is denied or they cancel their order, they'll no longer have that role. And that lets you do all kinds of things, because in Drupal, with content management out the wazoo, roles are everything. If you ever want to control anything, any kind of access, any kind of functionality, you can give access and abilities to create certain things just based on a role. Think, for example, LinkedIn. If you were to create a community site that's absolutely free, but you wanted to charge premium members the ability to message certain users, you just install private message, and you only allow certain roles to access private message. And you use this to upsell your community to be able to private message people. We've just disintermediated LinkedIn with a couple modules. Okay, so it just sells user roles, and the idea is
commerce license.
Commerce license and commerce license role. And the idea is we're giving you the tools to build any kind of e-commerce situation you can imagine that doesn't require shipping. Okay, so I'm going to do something you're never supposed to do, and that's a live demo. Okay, so right here what we have, I'm even going to refresh just to make sure it's live. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is actually running Platform, and in my description I said I would demo that as well. Platform is basically a Git repository that your Hosting on a site, you can see I have different commits here. Locally, I push up. And if you went to the Johnny Fox's continuous integration talk, that's basically what we're doing here. We're rebuilding your site every time you make a commit. You get hooks so that you can put testing capabilities in there so that every time you push one change to your site, everything gets run again and you get errors if something doesn't run. It also allows you to branch. So this demo is a branch off of master. And there's another demo underneath that called theme, I think, if it'll load. Oh, this is equipped to go. This is a wrong one.
Is this similar to Pantheon or what?
Okay, yeah. So for example, yeah, it is like Pantheon, except Pantheon, I think, got it wrong. Pantheon is giving you basically the FTP, the Dreamweaver version of what this is. It's giving you a full site and it lets you have commit access to it. But what it's not letting you do is create hierarchical branches. So if you have enough environments to do this, you can create like 4 or 5 sprints, and each sprint could have each of your team members, and each branch has a complete copy of your site files, your database, the Apache Solr server that's doing it, and any other types of web services that you would integrate. It's a complete copy. So with one click, you can take a copy of that live running site and have another live running site of it. And it's inheritable too. So if I'm working on Sprint and I have a theme, I just create my own little version of theme right here. I'm working on the theme and I submit a commit up one, then it's only affecting the sprint and it's not affecting the master. It kind of puts Pantheon on its head. Usually you're working backwards with Pantheon and you're working from live and then you're pushing up to live. Okay, so here we have a live platform website called BookPal. You can't really see it because something happened with admin menu and I have a search box there. I'm not sure why. But that's the disadvantage of using live demos. This is a demo that I created for DrupalCon Austin to show people how easy it is to actually add commerce to a real site. So this is a real site. It's not hosted anywhere, but it just has content of all the different Drupal books that existed out on Drupal.org. I just copied those into this website and gave it some views to play around with. You can go into these views and tool around in here. I'm using Bootstrap, by the way, which I really like, but it's probably sacrilege to some designers. So this is a node, and it's using panels to show it off. So what we want to do is we want to start selling access to, gosh, now I've forgotten. Already got a question? Or you're just stretching? You're stretching. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on commerce, and I recommend turning on all of commerce. Oh, I know what we're going to sell. We're going to sell a PDF, an ebook version of these things. So we already have a catalog, and a lot of websites out there right now exist with catalogs. And in fact, we've had a number of customers come to Commerce Guys who are book publishers that already have a ton of content, but they're not selling anything. They're not selling it on their website. And it's kind of an easy fix for them to do that, just as I'm going to demonstrate here. So you go through, there's a number of things under the commerce section that I recommend you turn most of them on. Tax and tax UI, so governments get their money. So first you go ahead and turn that on, and you hope Platform is going to run this nice and quick for us. It should. We have, this is Commerce 1X. 2X is getting developed for Drupal 8. There's lots of really exciting things getting published on DrupalCommerce.org about the 8X version, and lots of stuff going on with Symfony and that kind of thing. I'm going to cheat a little bit and trying to remember what else I'm turning on. Okay, we're enabling Commerce License and File. That's probably under Commerce Contrib here. Okay. So these two, that's all I'm going to turn on right now. You could turn on commerce license role. That was the module I was telling you about that can sell access to content. We're just going to sell digital file. Once you've got that, you now have the ability to sell digital products right out of the box. We have a store menu now, and you're able to go in here and look at payment methods, pricing rules, and the most important thing, of course, license settings. Now, out of the box, it doesn't have any checkboxes because it doesn't want to assume anything, but we just have one product here, and that's what Commerce comes installed with. I just turned on Commerce. I'd never turned it on before in this version of the site, so that's just what it comes with out of the box. We'll click Save Configuration. And once you have that turned on, you can go in here to File, and you set this licensable product, because you can have more than file licenses. You can also have role licenses. You can have node creation licenses. The sky's the limit because there's an API there. And we'll go ahead and make sure anybody can only download these particular products for 100 at a time. Why not? So now we have licensable products, but what's really happened here? We're going to next look at the turn on for product type. Okay, next we're going to just create a product. So we only have one kind of product, so I just click add a product and it's going to just create it for me. So I'm going to call this download the ebook. Actually, this is the SKU, so I'm just going to call it ebook. And download the ebook. That's what they're paying for. And we're going to charge them $2 for it. Why not? I'm not even going to limit the license duration. They're just going to have access to it because that's the right thing to do. As a consumer, that's what I always want. Oh yeah, well, we need to give them a file to actually access. So we'll see what kind of files I have access to here. Maybe there's something under work that I can give them. Looking for, I've got some stuff in example catalog. We're going to give them a. Oh, is there a picture of Ryan? Yeah, let's. Oh yeah, all right. We're going to sell them a picture of Ryan, even though they think they're getting an ebook. Actually, I don't know if it'll. Yeah, no, it allows JPEG. Okay, we're cool. Save product. All right. So when you download the ebook, you're going to look at Ryan, and inside the pixels of Ryan is all of the code for Drupal Commerce. Okay, so the next step in any Drupal Commerce store, you have a product, and you're looking at it right here. It's got a SKU, it's got a price, but how do you purchase a product? You attach it to an actual node. And to do that, we need to go into a content type. So that's under structure. And we have lots of, because this is already a site that exists, they've created a couple content types for us. They have one called book, and we go here and look at manage fields. They have a ton of fields, and this is pretty common to what I see in a Drupal site that's existed for a while. Usually there's a lot of fields and a lot of stuff going on. The only thing you need to add is a product reference. I'm going to go ahead and call it a select list is fine. Of course, if you get more than like 20 or 30 books in this, you're going to want to choose something else. Maybe autocomplete text field. There's a great module that Kickstart 2 made famous called inline entity field, which allows you to actually add the product inside the node. Okay, so this is ebook. I'm actually going to render the referenced products when viewing this entity. I'm just going to not check that because there's only one, and I'm only going to allow one product to be referenced. You can make it many, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we want to go to content. Let's add this ebook to the first book that we see here. Okay, Definitive Guide to Drupal 7. So when I click Edit, down at the very bottom of the form, I'm going to have a product reference field called ebook. So download the ebook. So I'm going to click that and click Save. Now what this is going to do is going to take you back to the node, and you're not going to see anything because I'm using panels. And panels overrides this particular view mode, which would normally just give you an output that doesn't look very nice. So in this panel we have, and again, I think this is very common where you run into a Drupal site and maybe they're using panels, maybe they're using display suite, maybe they're using something else. And I chose this as an example to teach you, you don't have to be scared of these things because Commerce works with almost anything. So I'm going to add two fields to the sidebar. I'm going to add the Add to Cart button and I'm going to add the price. And to get to those, you go to the node, and we have a couple things here from the product. We don't want to give them the files. That would kind of defeat the purpose. The good news is if they don't have access, if they haven't purchased the file, all they would see is the file name. They wouldn't see a link to actually download it. The bad news is you can't sell downloadable content to anonymous users. And I found that out the hard way. I just launched an ebook website 2 weeks ago, and I had the owner of the site call me in a crazy tiz, and he was like, I can't download this PDF and I've just purchased it. And I'm like, oh, I need to turn off anonymous checkout. So that's just something to learn, because if you don't have a user, you can't really give them access to something that they've just purchased. So definitely force a checkout when you're doing this. Okay, so that being said, we have two things. We have a price, which is what I wanted, and we have an add to cart form, which I'll show you in a second. So we're going to do price first. That's fine. We'll click finish. And then we're also going to add a add to cart form. Now,
Josh, is that something that the industry's, e-commerce industry is slowly moving away from? Anonymous?
Everybody, information is money, is what it comes down to. But also, I mean, whoever you're selling this content to, unless it's actually something downloadable that they would get once and that's all they need, it's going to make sense that you have to log in to see it or to access it or to change. It wouldn't make sense if, for example, you had a cell phone that you were paying for, but you couldn't log into their website because you'd never created an account. So yes, it is something that the industry is moving towards, but it's smart business on your part to just out of the box just force everyone to register before they can purchase. They can create things in the cart. There's a module, I'll come up with it after the demo. I forget what it's called, but it's like checkout redirect or something like that. Google that and you'll get the module that basically, if they're not logged in, goes to the registration form, and as soon as they register, takes you back to the checkout page. Problem solved. Okay, so I don't see here in this list an add to cart form, and that's one of the weird idiosyncrasies of Drupal Commerce. It's actually the reference field that's being formatted to create the add to cart form. So we're looking for the ebook field that I created. And you'll notice down here, the formatter is add to cart form. I think that's an easy way to get confused. Okay, we'll click continue. And finish. Okay, so now that I've changed the panel, we should now be able to see on node 28 with some fancy styling, a price and an add to cart form. And I'm not sure if anybody was timing me, but I think that was maybe 15 minutes. I was trying to go slow so you could kind of see what was going on. But you add this particular product that has a file reference field to your cart. You click on your cart, you're actually checking out with an ebook on a site that did not have e-commerce 10, 15 minutes ago. Click checkout. We're going to fill this sucker out with my name and a fake address. Used to live in Indiana. I don't anymore. Moved to Greenville, South Carolina, where it's prettier. This is a new feature of the example payment that comes with Commerce Core. It actually gives you an example payment number. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, so there we go. I have now checked out with this. Now, one of the things that you might want to do, and I highly recommend it, but again, it's not by default. If you go into checkout settings, there's a new pane called license completion message. And specifically for Commerce File, that's going to be really helpful because when somebody checks out, they're going to want to download the thing they just bought, right? So let's go back to the home page and do this one more time just to see how that works. So I just enabled that pane. Now I'm wondering if I click save. I think I did. Add that to cart, go to my cart, gonna check out, let's see if it remembers. No, I don't have the address. 123 Main Street. And now when I check out, I should see a link. There it is. And I can now see Ryan in all of his beautiful glory. Oh, it forced me to actually download it. I couldn't actually. We'll see what happens when I try to open it. There you go. DrupalCon Austin. That's where he's going to be. I think that's actually a page from like Meet the Authors. Yeah, there it is. So we have now the ability to buy PDFs on this website, and I enabled Commerce License, and Commerce File, and that was it. So go back to your clients, tell them you can actually start selling PDFs in 15 minutes plus payment gateway setup, which could take days. Payment gateways are notoriously difficult to get all the bugs worked out. So if you're new to e-commerce, then that won't be new. That would be news to you, but otherwise you would know. Any questions? No questions.
When you say payment gateway setup, I have a gateway with First Data. Does that mean all I need is just the First Data module for e-commerce? And
Right. So there's a great module. I believe they're a partner of ours, First Data. There's enough now that I don't have them all memorized. I remember seeing them on the marketplace, so I'm pretty sure they're a partner. And yeah, you enable that module. If they're a partner, that means we're actually helping them with their module to make sure it's right, which is hard to do in Drupal Commerce to get it right. And so they have a great module that will connect with it. Now, one thing that not all payment gateways come with is the ability to tokenize cards. Off the top of my head, Stripe does it. Stripe will let you tokenize cards. Authorize.net will let you tokenize cards. And tokenizing cards is what's required for card on file to work. So that means you could use these payment gateways. Authorize.net actually connects with lots of payment gateways too. They just get to tack their little 3% on top of whatever payment gateway they connect to. But that does kind of open the door. It's actually one of our most popular payment gateways.
And that's just so that we aren't keeping credit card information on our server.
Absolutely. Now you are still somewhat in fact, you are responsible to a certain degree since you're actually selling the service, but no more responsible than you would be for, and I'm no PCI compliance expert, just want to let you know that, for all the lawyers in the room. You are at the same PCI level compliance that you would be otherwise if you're using tokenized payments. Yeah. Oh, I think it's actually worse if you take it over the phone, because then you have to write it down, right? That'd be terrible.
Well, there's 3 separate levels of PCI compliance, and as long as you don't have the credit card on file on your system, then I think you only have to stay with PCI 2 compliance.
Which can still be pretty.
It's about 88 regs, but we went through it and just to check off and make sure our Drupal Commerce installation is PCI compliant. And we use Authorize.net, and we had no problems.
Great.
But we also don't store the credit cards on our machines. If you do that, then you have to go up to level 3 compliance, which is, I believe, about 230 rules versus 88.
It's also very expensive to do it right.
The last thing you want to do is run not be PCI compliant with a commerce site.
Right. And it's difficult to, we've talked about it in Commerce Guys, to even do a SaaS where it's PCI compliant level 1. And it's hard because you have to actually pay somebody, believe it or not, to go through and look at every line of your code and put their little rubber stamp on it that it's secure. So if you can imagine all of the open sourcey stuff that you're doing with Drupal Commerce, and then to stay PCI level compliant 1, every time you do an update to your modules, every time there's a security fix that you throw at it, You have to do that all over again.
Is there a government regulation for it? I'm sure it is.
There's a great website called Drupal PCI Compliance. Google that. I'm not sure if it's .com or not. That is an independent Drupal individual who has written a great deal of information, tells you how to get through, how to figure out which level you should be at, what those levels mean, what's happening in the future, and it's as recently as 2 months ago was updated with all the new regulations. So it is by far the best resource, I think, in the world for PCI compliance, because it speaks to me as a Drupaler. I understand that document, and it's hard. It's a hard read, but it's all there. So highly recommend that for anybody trying to sell stuff online. I also highly recommend using a payment gateway that lets you navigate a way to take credit card information. That lowers you, in some cases, not all cases, to PCI level compliance 1, which is really nice because that's even less regulations. Any other questions? In the back.
Yes, when is Commerce Recurring Framework going to be a released project?
Is it dev still? Okay, so Commerce Recurring, which is not something we've talked about. License billing was the recurring component of Commerce License. Commerce Recurring is a module that's out there. It's really great if you want to, say, sell physical products in a full order. So if you want to sell bulk toilet paper to anybody, I mean, I've always thought this was a great idea. You sell bulk things that take up some room, but are pretty light to ship and are always going to be needed, whoever you're sending it to. So you're selling that, and they want to have so much toilet paper shipped to them every month. That's what Commerce Recurring does. And the dev release is being used on production sites. It just doesn't have the developer attention to make it a full release.
Oh, it's not the same.
Right. Oh, yeah. So I talked about Commerce Recurring in terms of the Commerce License module, the actual idea that it's recurring, billing types, that kind of thing. Other questions? Everybody excited? You think you can go out there and own the world tonight? Go build yourself an awesome e-commerce site?
So I have to say, I mean, this is what I'm hearing today. It sounds good. The training that I attended for Drupal Commerce, you guys were saying, do not install the modules and do this yourself. Start with the Kickstart. Did something change since last year now?
We're coming to the reality of, and really this is for almost all of Drupal. Distributions are great, but they make it very tricky to maintain. And if you're going to be maintaining a distribution, you should either be making that distribution, or you should be building something that looks like the distribution but doesn't actually use it. Use it as a reference.
I was saying, we had a fellow talking on Drupal Commerce a while back. He said use Kickstarter as an example. Throw it out there, refer to it, see how things are done.
Yeah.
Build things from scratch.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what Kickstart 2 is best used for, and demos. It's really great to get clients hooked because they think it's right out of the box. So easy. There's a couple of blog posts on DrupalCommerce.org that I wrote 2 years ago that shows you how to build all of the great things that Kickstart 2 does out of the box with very little. I think it takes 15 minutes to get the back end to look right, to get the inline entity form to look right. Almost all of it's admin facing, not necessarily product facing. Okay, afterwards. All right. I think that's it. All right. Thank you guys for coming.